There is no more storytelling in house music. It's just straight up get it in. And when you have that, it kind of creates this and there's no, it's just this. And there's no emotion because nobody's really singing, nobody's really telling a story. I used to go to the loft sometimes and I would go upstairs and my relationship was not going good at home, and I would go upstairs and hear a certain song that touched me in a way that I got healing from, and I could just go like this and go, oh man, I just feel so much better now. You don't get that now.
Today is Friday, November 17th, 2023. We're talking to the Mike Dungy, the one everyone
Fast
says,
Mike, bro.
AKA Fast Mike. Let's get into it. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Okay, I'm originally from Washington, D.C. Born in 1955 and came to New York in 1962 with my parents. And we moved to stay with my mother's sister. And we moved to Bed-Stuy. Matter of fact, we were right around the corner from the Marcy Project. And I used to hang out in the Marcy Projects a little bit growing up. Pulaski Street, over there between DeKalb and Marcy. So that was where I basically grew up my first couple of years in New York. And then we didn't stay with my aunt too long. We stayed maybe a couple of years. My birthday is on the 22nd of November. So that's the same day President Kennedy was assassinated. So we stayed there with my aunt for a couple of years. We moved to a couple of other places. Crown Street. I spent a few years in Crown Street. And then finally, while staying in D.C., because I used to go back to D.C. to stay with my grandparents a lot in the summertime. So the year that Martin Luther King was assassinated, my mother sent us also down for the spring break. And we ended up pretty much staying for till the summer. And while we were going, there was a fire in the apartment. And they ended up moving while we were still in D.C. When we came back, we were actually in the apartment that I'm in now. I'm staying in my mother's apartment after she passed away a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 68, 69. And then I started going into IS 320. I went there 1 year for the 8th grade. And then that following year, I went to Erasmus Hall. And that's pretty much where it all started at for me, as far as dancing and getting involved with the whole dance scene is concerned.
What kind of music did you hear around the house growing up?
Well, my mother used to dance back in the 40s. She was a Lindy Hopper. So she was very much into music. And as far as what she used to play around the house is a lot of Ella Fitzgerald and stuff like that. You know, when I did hear her, my mother used to be a nurse, so she used to work at night. But those were some of the songs that I used to hear her play around the house. And she was always like dancing to the music while she was cleaning up the house. So I kind of, I guess I could say I got it from her, my love for dance. probably came from her because she used to dance herself. So I would say, yeah, I got it from her.
And then, do you remember the first nightclub you went to?
Yeah, the first nightclub I went to after we moved over here was a club called the COCP on Atlantic Avenue. And it was a dark club. Wasn't well lit, but it was my first time ever seeing like dancers. When I say dancers, guys, like get out on the floor and do their own little freestyle type of dancing. And a lot of James Brown, a lot of Mandrill. You know, I used to have a curfew back then. My father wouldn't let me stay out past midnight, so I used to stay maybe an hour, and I used to have to haul my butt back home. But that was my first taste of seeing people dance to, back then we called it just dance music. And besides that, going to Coney Island on Easter Sunday and hanging out by the Himalaya.
I'm glad you brought that up. Only real New York people know about that. Tell people about the Himalaya.
Oh man, listen, the Himalaya was like, if you lived in Brooklyn and you went to Coney Island, you went to the Himalaya. And if you had anything about a feel for dance, then the Himalaya was the place to go to, because that's where people went to dance. And especially Easter. It was like Easter was like the time to go to Coney Island, show off your little outfit if you had, your little outfit, and they would play music while the ride was going on, and people would be dancing. So that was another experience for me, like to see guys dancing. Back then, a lot of the Latin brothers were the ones that kind of got that whole dance thing going as far as the up rock style of dancing, which for me, the first time I saw that style of dancing was at Coney Island. And later on, I found out that it was also in the city at the same time. But I didn't find that out until like maybe my second or third year in Erasmus, when we started partying in the city. Because I basically was partying in Brooklyn. Back then, when DJ Flowers, DJ Plummer, and all of the early DJs of the 70s were playing out. A lot of back then, Reese Beach was the place to go. And they would play out at Reese Beach. They were playing in the parks here in Brooklyn. And that's how you would know about the dance soul music scene here in Brooklyn. Kind of got started with DJ Flowers. As a matter of fact, I was a member of the Flowers Dancers back in the 70s, early 70s. I danced in a senior show at Erasmus Hall. This was in 74. And that night after the senior show, we went to Clara Barton High School because Flowers was playing there. And we went to the party and we danced again, just to go and dance. And he saw us dancing, the little group that I was in at that time. And one of his guys came over and said, listen, Flowers wants to talk to you guys. And we went over and Flowers introduced himself. I didn't even realize how popular he was at that time. And he says, listen, you guys really dance great. I like the routine. I'd like you guys to be my dancers. And, from wherever I play out, I'll stop the show in the middle of the set, introduce you guys, and you guys do your routine. and we agreed, like, we didn't, for us, that was a big thing. So we just said, all right, fine, we'll do it. And so we became the Flowers Dancers. And wherever he performed at, here in Brooklyn and also in the city, because back then he was also doing the college circuit, like Queens College, college in Manhattan, Brooklyn College here in Brooklyn. A lot of DJs were doing the college circuit, and they would give a party on either Friday or Saturday night. I guess the colleges would give them permission to hold the events, and a lot of people would show up. They had a big following, so it gave us some recognition as a dance group being under him.
Let's get right into it. Talk about your first experience at the Loft. How did you get there? How did you find out about it? Who brought you there?
Well, after I started partying in the city with Flame, who was part of the group that when we were Flowers Dancers, and then we became the City Steppers. And close to around the time when we were kind of like doing shows also. And then it was Flame that introduced me. I have to say, it was Flame that introduced me to the city scene, because I basically was with the Brooklyn scene, Club My Way, Promoters, Speakeasy. And so I started hanging with him in the city, and before we went to the group, like the gay club scene, it was clubs like the Fresh, Raspberry Freeze, the Headrest, Third World Gallery. These were the clubs that we were going to that were basically heterosexual clubs. And a lot of the dancers from back then were the ones that we kind of were following, like the Original Rubber Band, Little Man, Jesus. These are all of the great dancers that were before us. And then finally, we went to the Gallery. I think the Gallery was the first gay club that I actually ever went to. And that was Nicky Ciano playing in the Gallery. And after the Gallery closed, he reopened around the corner on Franklin Street, the Buttermilk Bottom. So we were going to the Buttermilk Bottom on Saturday nights, which was a gay club. This was a gay club. And I knew James Junebug from before that. And I can remember him always saying, yo, you got to come check out the Loft, come check out the Loft. And it was also Willie Dancer, who you interviewed also. He was a Lofty before I was. And he would come to the Buttermilk sometimes early and leave and go to the Loft. And he would always say to me, yo, bro, you got to come to the Loft. You got to come check out the Loft. And he never, I always would say, yeah, okay, I got you. I'm going to come. But I never really came. Just kind of stuck with the Buttermilk and Nicky. And then Flame was a big Nicky Ciano head. So it was kind of like not really something that I really was like, okay, I'm going to do it, until one night I was at the Buttermilk, and Ricky from the Loft and his partner, Papo, came to the Buttermilk one night. And people was coming over and saying, yo, Rick, some Loft dancers is here. So we said, okay, let's go check them out. And they came and they opened up the dance floor doing that this whole loft style of dancing. And right away I said, you know what? I said, I spoke to Flame. We were both sitting there watching. I said, bro, next Saturday I'm going to the Loft. And he was like, well, I don't know. I said, well, I guess you won't be going. So I said, because I'm going to the Loft next Saturday. So that next Saturday, myself, Doc, and Mike Ramstor, who we were all like hanging with at the Buttermilk together, we decided we was going to go to the Loft. So that next Saturday, and this was like maybe 78, I'll say 78, maybe 79. It was either 78 or 79. And that next Saturday, we went to the Loft. And man, let me tell you something, bro. It was like, I had such an amazing night that first night that I never went back to the Buttermilk ever after that. I just was hooked on the Loft, and from that point on, it was strict Loft, straight up Loft for me. Unless I went to the garage on a Friday. But Saturday night, I was in the Loft.
Tell people about the Paradise Garage. What is it? How did you discover it? How is it different from the Loft?
Well, the Paradise, I actually went with Flame. The first time I ever went to the garage was with Flame also. And at that point, the main dance floor was the lounge area, and the big main dance floor that everybody ended up partying in with the stage and everything, that was like the cool out area. And the main dance floor was just a small little area before you, like when you first come in, after you get past the coat check, there was a small little room with the little glass mirrors and whatnot on the side. That was the dance area. And when you went into what eventually became the main floor, it was kind of like just a place to go chill. And that was kind of weird because it was so big. And you was like, why is this? They had a tree. I remember them, they had a tree in there one time. And I was like, it was kind of spooky a little bit. But that was my first time going to Paradise. And then I think the next time I came back, they switched it up. And then the main spot, which was the cool out, became the main area where they had the stage and everything. And I guess, the difference between Paradise and the Loft was Paradise was kind of just, you got the full package of made large, expansive dance floor, a full stage to put on shows, which is what they did. A very big area where you could go get your punch area and get your juices and whatnot, a movie room, and then the rooftop. So you can go up on the rooftop. They had speakers piped in up on the rooftop too. So you got all of this ambiance going on, and it was a much larger area, so it held more people. So, and then you have Larry. So you got all of this going on in one club, and to be a club that you had to actually not, you had to either be with somebody that was a member or you was a member yourself. Otherwise, you wasn't getting in. It was so popular, and Friday was more like heterosexual night, and Saturday was gay night. So for me, I went on Friday, got my little, garage thing going on. And then that Saturday, I was in the Loft.
How often did you go to the Loft, and what kept you coming back?
Well, like I said, I started going, if it was 78, 79 maybe, every Saturday until it closed. I don't think I missed a Saturday night in 5, 6 years in a row. Maybe once or twice if I tried to go somewhere else, which I did a couple of times. I tried to go somewhere else, and it just wasn't the same. So pretty much 6, 7 years in a row until it actually closed down. I believe the Loft closed in '85 after the garage closed. It was either both of them closed around the same time, '85, '86. I think the garage may have closed first because I went to the garage the last party for the garage that weekend. I did the whole Friday night and then came back Saturday. And then the Loft may have closed after that. I think the garage closed first, and then after that the Loft closed. So I didn't miss a weekend. You didn't have to ask me anything where I was going to be at after I left the Loft on Saturday. It was like, I'm going to be right back in that Loft. And yeah, like I said, 5, 6 years in a row without missing a Saturday, maybe once or twice during 6 years of a 6-year run.
Talk to us about also there were many different locations at the Loft. Tell people which location you went to.
Well, I was at 99 Prince Street, which was the first location. The first time I went there, the entrance was on the side, not on Prince Street, where you went downstairs to the basement. And then they ended up closing that, and then you ended up having to come in through the Prince Street entrance, which was right past where the DJ's booth was. And so I was 99 until it closed. Then he moved to 3rd Street, and he stayed there for maybe a year. Not even sure if it was a whole year. And then he ended up leaving 3rd Street. That ended up becoming the Choice. And then he moved to another spot that was over in like Lower East Side, right off of what is that? Broadway? No, that was further down. It was in the Lower East Side. It was like a smaller place that was above a store, and they just kept getting smaller and smaller. So it became less and less of the original Loft people, as each space from the move from each space made it less and less of the original Loft people going.
I got you. The Loft parties were known for their unique atmosphere. How would you describe the vibe and the environment at the Loft?
Well, what made the Loft really special was the number one, the music, of course, the way Dave played, how he would just play anything. Like, you never knew what to expect from him as to what he was going to play. And of course, a lot of the songs that he was playing, I never heard of almost none of the stuff that I ever heard until I started going to the Loft. And then, the whole atmosphere was just this whole family kind of atmosphere. You had upstairs and you had downstairs, which was actually like 2 separate parties going on at the same time. And the fact that you don't have runs like that in clubs anymore, where a club will stay open for 5, 6, 7, 8 years in a row. Like, I believe the Loft may have started like in early 70, and then for it to go to 85, you're talking about a 15-year run. And for a club to be open that long, and then have a lot of the same people going week in and week in and week in and week in and week out, and then, of course, bringing in new folks also, it just made the vibe so amazing. We were like one big family that, we all came every weekend. So we were all like family, and we became, the relationships were built through the dance, that whole dance thing, and then the music. And it just, we started hanging out together. Like, we would go to other places together. After the Loft closed, we'd go to the Greasy Spoon restaurant and party there and stay there 2 hours. And then we would all go to Washington Square Park. And then we would stay there until damn near 8, 9 o'clock at night. And then the next weekend we would come back and we would do the same thing. And it just went on and on and on. And it was so much fun, man. And then you had so many different dance styles. Everybody just did their own thing. It was, if somebody was doing ballet, somebody was doing tap dance, this guy's doing capoeira, somebody's doing the arts, flipping everything. You just had this whole mix of a different dance style going on in one venue. And everybody appreciated everybody's style. We all learned a little bit from everybody else. And it was an amazing run at that club. Yeah.
Talk to us about fashion. What were people wearing when they went to the Loft? What did you wear when you went to the Loft?
Well, at first, there was the baggy pants kind of thing, that a lot of people was going to thrift shops and buying baggy pants and wide brim hat and all of that. But the Loft kind of didn't have that going on, because it was a different kind of a flavor. If you went to the Loft, everybody just was going to, what was the name of that store on open near the Village? I forgot the name of it.
Unique.
Yes, Uniques, and people were getting capizios and baggy pants and the jumpsuits and everything, and pretty much everybody was wearing them. All the guys was wearing them, even some of the girls was wearing them, and it was capizios, some baggy pants, a cut off t-shirt or whatever, and maybe even some gym shorts, the old gym shorts. It was a mixed bag of tricks, and that was pretty much it. If you went, you made sure you had your capiz.
Do you have any specific standout moments or memories of the Loft where it was like a special night was just like, oh my God, I lost my mind that night?
Oh man, there was plenty nights. I can tell you a story of a New Year's Eve that I decided to go to another club. And I went with the girl I was seeing at that time. I was seeing a young lady named Martha. And we decided to go. We said, oh, we're not going to go to Loft for New Year's Eve. We're going to go do something different. So we got dressed up. I mean, like, I had a suit on and she had a dress on. And we went out with her brother and his girlfriend. And we went to this club. And when we got to the club, it's horrible. And we were like, oh man, what we gonna do now? What we gonna do now? So he's like, yo, I guess we're gonna go to the Loft. And I was like this? I was like, I had a suit on, I'm gonna go to the Loft. And it was like, it's too late to go home and change, Mike. We just gonna go. So I was like, all right, whatever. We went to the Loft that night. And of course, we dropped the tab. And I can tell you, man, by the time, within that first hour, after I dropped that tab, I tore that suit up in shreds, man. It was so ripped up. The sleeve was all ripped up. The pants was all split up on the side. And when I left the club, I just threw it in the garbage, man. I was like, you know what, forget about it. There was no sense to trying to take it home to fix it. Because once the music started playing and we started dancing, it was bananas. And just I had such a great time that night. And it there were other times the Halloween parties was always off the chain. The fire, the night that the fire was in the club was so weird because we was in the club, everybody was tripping pretty much. So when you saw the smoke coming up in the club, you figured that it was just a smoke machine, and you was like, "Yo, but Dave don't have a smoke machine, so what's going on?" And people still just kept partying until finally a fireman came down in the club, and it was like, "Oh shoot, what is this?" And next thing you know, they said, "Yo, everybody got to leave. There's a fire." And it was what, 10 degrees outside, 15 degrees. It was freezing out. And we all couldn't get to our coats. I was one of the lucky ones that got my coat. I was able to grab my coat and run outside. And we stood outside in the freezing weather with all our clothes still sweaty and everything. It's lucky that, matter of fact, I ended up getting sick from that night because we stood outside. We all huddled up against the wall with each other. I ended up giving the coat to another girl that was freezing. We still partying on the freaking fire truck, and we went right back inside when it was all over and acted like nothing happened. And just partied the night away. This was just how, like, determined people were to still party no matter what. But of course, you got to remember when you get, pretty much everybody in the club is on something. When you take a tab or whatever, 172, some acid or whatever, you got to dance it out. There's no way you could sit down, or you have to keep dancing until you get that stuff out of your system. So everybody just danced and danced and that was the reason we were able to do it for sometimes 12 hours. Like, sometimes we didn't leave the loft till 2, 3 in the afternoon. So if you got to the loft at 3 in the morning, 2 or 3 in the morning, and you stayed to 2, 3 in the afternoon, that was almost 12 hours of dancing. And there was no way I could see myself doing that on a straight head. To be dancing like how we dance, to throw yourself all on the floor and people diving and flipping and carrying on. Man, there was no way. You had to dance, and that's what made it so great. Also, people don't want to, like, some people say, "Oh, man, drugs played a big role in that scene." Like, it was just the thing, and that was the garage also, for that matter. All the drug dealers used to be outside across the street from the club, and everybody will come and see the drug dealers all across the street, and you go get your stuff and you load up, and then you go in the club and dance all night long. That was the way, the gasoline in your tank for you to be able to do that. Without that, I don't even think the scene would be the way it was, because of the fact that everybody was pretty much high. Dave kept acid in the punch bowl. Larry had acid in the punch bowl in the garage. If you went to the punch bowl and you drank a cup of punch, they got you. So pretty much everybody was tripping. And when you put that element mixed in with great music and a vibe where everybody's just having a good time and not caring about nothing but just dancing and enjoying the moment, it's never going to be the same now because of that. That will never ever happen again. It's sad that we didn't have video of, and the only way that I could see it being videoed to keep it real was not to tell people we're videotaping. Just have somebody hide in the back, and when everybody comes in, just hit record and just record the whole night. Man, let me tell you something. You would bug out. It would to this very day, it would be amazing because of how people carried on and so uninhibited in terms of how their dance, their just the whole atmosphere. So, man, that was a very important part of it that made the experience the way it was.
Let's talk about relationships. Did you ever date anybody you met at the Loft? And then separate from that, how did you maintain personal relationships and still go clubbing?
Oh my God. I'm going to tell on myself. The first night I went to the Loft, I met somebody the first night. A girl came up to me after I started dancing because I came there, and I guess people were like, oh shoot, these are guys from the Buttermilk or whatever they had known about us. And I kind of did a little face off with Juice. I'll never forget that. I guess that was my initiation. Like, okay, man, let me see what you got. And he fronted me on the dance floor. And as soon as that happened, a girl came and jumped in my face, and she was smiling. And that next day, when we left, she took me to a club called The Unexpected that was here on Flatbush Avenue. It was a Sunday party. And I had sex with her. And I didn't even really know her. And from that point on, oh my God. I once had a guy, Lord, I ain't gonna lie either, who said to me, he said, yo, Mike, I just come to see who you gonna leave with the next day. It's like, oh shoot, for real? And it just wasn't me, because pretty much everybody was intermingling like that. When you mix music and you mix drugs, and then you have men and women together partying in the same club like that. They used to have something called, one of the twins made up the saying called Loft Lust. And he would say at a certain part of the night, he would say, yo, Loft Lust is starting to kick in, bro. And it was very self-explanatory what he meant by that. Like, you were looking to see who you could get with for the next day when you left. And I consider myself very lucky to actually still be here, because I had one night stands galore. And I had a woman tell me that she was one of the lucky ones. I was on the train one day, and this was maybe about maybe 10 years after the Loft closed, and I'm on the train, and a girl, she's sitting across from me, and she's looking at me, and she's smiling and everything. I'm like, yo, what's this woman looking at me? And so she's like, you don't remember me? You don't remember me? And I was like, no. And then she says, well, the Loft, 99 Prince Street. And I was going, okay, yeah, I used to go there. And then she says, yeah, now you don't remember me? And then I was like, oh, shoot. Like, you probably slept with this chick and don't even remember her. Because it was like that back then. Like, I've slept with many a chick that I never even got to know their names. And I'm sure a lot of other people was pretty much the same. Names wasn't really important back then. When you factor in the other elements, and that's pretty much how the scene was anyway. It didn't matter where you went. If you went to the garage, it was the same thing. It was just a bigger venue. You're still going to have that element going on. And this was around the same time that AIDS was starting to usher in. Like around that time, the AIDS epidemic became very prevalent in that scene. And everybody was pretty much sleeping with everybody. So if you made it out, you were lucky. And that's basically how it was. So, and then I just had relationships like, okay, I met somebody and we got together. And then the next day, that Monday, she said, oh, so you going to the Loft next weekend, right? I said, yeah, I'm going. Oh, so you want to meet up and then we go together? And I would tell them, no. I was saying, no, that's all right. I'll see you there. I'm not, in other words, we're not going to meet and I'm going with you. You're going and I'm going and I'll see you there. And if by chance we reconnect again, then fine. But if not, then that's fine also. And that's basically how it was, unless you actually, and a lot of people did come together as couples where they became couples in the club. I also got with somebody that I stayed with for a while. And she became my girl and blah, 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 blah. So that pretty much shut me down in terms of what I was doing before that. But before that, that's basically how it was. And Loft Lust was with everybody. There wasn't, oh man, everybody. Yes, everybody. And anybody who says that that's not true, they're lying, because it was prevalent. It was a normal thing to go to the club, and then you got, like I said, you got to understand. We went to the same club for 6, 7 years in a row. Some people went as long as 10 years in a row. How are you going to be in a club environment like that and this doesn't happen? And then you factor in the whole thing of taking drugs and everything, then it becomes a free type of sexual attraction that becomes even more enhanced when you have drugs play a role in it. So it's like, I meet you, I like you, I'm attracted to you. What are we gonna do? Boom, and then something happens. It's none of this, oh, we're gonna go date and get to know it. No, it was never like that. At least from my vantage point. Yes.
That was fantastic. I have some questions from different people. Archie wanted me to ask you, what was the moment you knew that the Loft was the spot?
The first night. I never in my life went to a club and within what, I wasn't even there for maybe an hour. And a girl comes up and jumps in my face and basically had googie eyes and everything. And it was like, I was like, uh-oh. I knew what was going to happen. And then after that, to see how the whole party atmosphere was with all these dances, like, to me, the downstairs scene at the Loft, if you didn't have downstairs at the Loft, then the Loft would be, to me, just a regular party that everybody would go upstairs and pretty much dance where it was dark. You got the balloons. To me, the only time I really went upstairs is if I was gonna get with somebody and I met somebody downstairs and I say, okay, let's go upstairs and dance a little bit because it was dark. You didn't have to worry about everybody seeing what you was doing. But for the most part, I stayed downstairs until they kicked us out and told us downstairs is closed. You got to go upstairs. And that was like, what, 8, 9 o'clock? So I would say by 9 o'clock, then downstairs would close, maybe 10. And for the last 2, 3, 4 hours, you had to go upstairs. You had no choice. You stay down there till the very last drop of time. And everybody, that downstairs, if you was downstairs in the Loft at 5 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock, yo, it was incredible. It was so incredible. The energy, the vibe. And so for me, that after that first night, I knew I was never going to go anywhere else on a Saturday after
that. Willie Pinedo had a few questions for you. What was the difference between the Maboya dancers and the Flowers dancers? And tell us about your dance style.
Well, like Maboya, I think I remember James saying to me one time that they were more like a looser kind of a style of dancing. Of course, I believe Maboya was West Indian, so that may have played a role in. Even though I don't really remember hearing Maboya playing reggae or anything, I just remember him playing regular music. But I think because what we had was routine. We had not only freestyle, but we had a structured routine that we presented as part of our presentation. And the routine is what separated us pretty much from everybody else in terms of how we performed. So that was pretty much it, and when I was also a member of a group that started in the Loft called the Force 5 with Willie. Willie was actually in the group. Willie, Ricky, myself, we started a group. Somebody recommended that we start a group, and it was also a little bit more of the same. We had a structured routine. So yeah, that pretty much is what separated I would say the Maboya dances from the Flowers dances. Was just we had more routine going on. Probably that was it. Yeah, I would say that was probably it. Yeah.
His other question is, remembering Flame and his dancing during the era which was dominant, how did he compete against the Maboya dancers?
I really don't remember so much him competing against the Maboya dancers in by himself. I mean, we were always on a flyer. Maboya dancers versus the Flowers dancers. Maboya dancers versus the Flowers dancers. For maybe a year straight. every single flyer that had the DJs, Flowers, Maboya, Pete DJ Jones, DJ Plummer, there was always going to be Maboya dancers, and there was always going to be the Flowers dancers, and eventually we actually changed the name to the City Steppers. And Flame, who was mainly known for his hustle style, because to me, Flame was one of the best hustlers besides another guy that he mentioned. I forgot his name. But his freestyle style emanated from his hustle style. And so I really can't say, I'm not going to say I remember him competing against the Maboya dancers so much. I don't even remember myself really competing against them like that in terms of some kind of one-on-one kind of thing, because it was always us dancing against them kind of as a group. So if I was to say Flame, you asked me about Flame competing against the Maboya dancers, maybe they saw it as that. I didn't really see it so much as that. But I will say this, Flame was a bad dancer. So, I mean, when he joined us as the Flowers dancers, we became more spectacular when Flame joined the group.
Willie's other question was, you had a scholarship to Alvin Ailey, but didn't pursue it. Why?
Well, it wasn't. What happened was, and this was after the Loft had closed, I believe. This was around the time, this was around 86 when I started going to BMCC. So this was right after the garage had closed, right after the Loft had closed. And, there was little pop-up, there were other clubs going on, but nothing like those two clubs. The Shelter kind of started a little later, a little after that. So I tried to get my head together in terms of job, career, and all of that. So I started going to BMCC. And as an elective, I took modern dance. And during the course of the semester, myself and at that time, the girl I was seeing, Martha, we both were going to school together, and we took the class together. And at the end of the semester, we put on, because what happened was we kind of took over the class, and we kind of maneuvered our dance style into the modern dance style that we were learning in the class. So at the end of the semester, we had to perform for Alvin Ailey, who came to see the class perform in the main auditorium. And this was actually before he passed away. I believe he was sick at that time. And he was blown away at what he saw. So much that he suggested that we, and it was just not just me, because it was the girl I was with also, that we pursue a career with him and his dance group. But I don't think I was serious enough for that. Like, I don't really realize, I don't think I realized at that moment the significance of who he was. I mean, I had heard of Alvin Ailey, but I don't think it was until after he died that I realized who he really was. Like when they said, "Oh, Alvin Ailey's you guys are gonna be performing for Alvin Ailey," and I was still like, okay, like who's Alvin Ailey? I was like, and who is he? Like I didn't really understand the significance of who he really was, and it wasn't until after that I didn't pursue it that I was like, oh wow, damn, Mike, you may have blown an opportunity there. And then I was still battling with trying to figure out what I was going to do with the dance scene. Was I going to like try to still like pursue it as a career? I had an opportunity to go to England. One night I was in the loft, and these two people from England who were here to study, and they were at the loft one night. And they saw me dance, and then after that, they came over and it's like, yo, listen, sir, we just witnessed you dancing, and we was like, listen, you need to come with us to England. And I was like, just like that? And it was like, yeah, like we're here for the summer. I think they were here for the summer vacation. And they're like, in September, we're going back to England, and we want to take you back with us. And we promise you that if you come with us back to England and you do this stuff that we saw you do at the club that night, you're going to be a star, and you're going to tear it. It'll be, don't worry, we promise you. And all you got to, they really wanted me to come with them. And they even said I could come stay with them. Just worry about, I think, yeah. Oh, just worry about your one-way ticket there, and don't worry about coming back. We'll make sure you get back if and when you decide to come back. And it was just too much for me to think that I could actually do that. And I turned it down. I was like, I didn't go with them. And here I am years later, I regretted that. Oh my God, I regretted that so much because of actually what's going on, or, the dance scene now the way it is now. This was back in the 80s when I had the chance to do that. So who knows what would have happened. So, I just really just was so caught up in the club scene and thinking that I was going to miss something. That was it. Oh my God. I thought I was just going to miss something. So I didn't want to go. And I didn't go.
Willie has another question. Being a choreographer for the City Steppers and later the Force 5, what happened? Why did you lose interest in being a choreographer?
Well, what happened was we were given the opportunity by a woman by the name of Ada LeBron, came to the loft one night, and she saw us dance. And I think maybe after the third time she came, she introduced herself, and she said, listen, I have some connections with Eddie Rivera and the 98.7 KISS record pool KISS cleanup program. I could get you guys shows with them. I got the connections. All you have to do is figure out who's going to be in the group, and I'll provide a space for you to rehearse. You're going to rehearse. I also know somebody who can do outfits, because she knew a guy who's a gay guy, who his name was Roberto Cruzan. And at that time, Roberto Cruzan was getting ready to become a very famous fashion designer. Matter of fact, some of his stuff was already in Macy's. So she knew him, and she says, I could get him guys to make you outfits. All you got to do is select who's going to be in the group, and and I'll make sure everything else happens for you. So I said, all right, fine. There's no way I was going to turn that down. So I said, who's going to be in the group? I talked it out with Doc, who was also in the City Steppers with me. So we kind of discussed, all right, who are we going to have in the group? Blah, 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 blah. So we chose Willie, Rick. We already had Mike Ramsor. We wanted a girl in the group, there was problems with that because a couple of the girls was like seeing each other. It was like, no, you can't have a girl that you're in a group that you're going to be seeing. So Ada became the girl. And I just said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep the Loft style of dancing, but we're going to still create routines based off of what we used to do with the City Steppers. And that will be the way we present ourselves on stage. So it's basically the Force 5 was a transition from the City Steppers. We just took from the City Steppers and put it into the Force 5. And when we got to the studio, I showed them the routines. We worked it out. We tried it out at the Loft one night, and it was a smashing success. Everybody went bonkers when they saw us dance because they had never seen. They were so used to us seeing, just be all over the place and doing freestyle and flipping and flying and all. And then all of a sudden, we all came together, bam, and we hit it. And we did some routines where we were all in sync together. And it was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And from that point on, it was from there right to the stage. We danced in the what was the name of that show? It was on the Third Avenue Food Festival that they still have every September, the Third Avenue Food Festival. And it was sponsored by 98.7 KISS, Eddie Rivera. He had a couple of his acts on stage. I forgot what's the name of that. Fran Jolie was one of the performers, and then another performer who hey looking for this, that the group that made that song. We opened up for them. There was like 10,000 people. And for the rest of that summer, whenever they had a show, we were in the show. And we just traveled with them. You name it, all the stars that had a song out back then, they got a chance to perform. And we were the kind of like, I guess you could say, the warm-up act, because we would come on first. And we would get it going, get the crowd pumping, blah, 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 and then the other groups would come on. And that's basically how it went. And it was really going really well. It was like, oh, wow, this is really, at first I was doubting. I don't know why I kept doubting. I was like, okay, Mike, what's going to happen? Because this is starting to be too good to be true now. I mean, we're with Eddie Rivera. We're with 98.7 KISS. And, at that time, he was the man. And then all of a sudden, she got sick. And she ended up going in the hospital.
Who got sick?
Ada. She got sick. And she went in the hospital. And she was diagnosed with AIDS. And then she ended up dying. And it just kind of just unraveled from that point on. Like, the girl who she also was in partnership with, I forgot her name. There was another woman that she was in partnership with that was kind of like the co-manager. And I don't know what happened to her. After Ada got sick, then we didn't see her no more. And the connection kind of just fell through because of her. And I don't know why they didn't still reach out to us to keep it going. It just fell apart, man. So once it fell apart, I was done. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this no more. Like I'm just done with it. I became disheartened because, first the City Steppers, now the Force 5. And, and we had actually a troupe of us. It wasn't just the 5. We had other people that were in the Loft that were also part of the troupe. They just didn't get a chance to really perform. because we were the main 5 dancers. There were other people that were, it was like maybe 15 or 20 people that all wanted to be part of what was going on with it. And after that summer, you know, when it seemed they had a big celebration at the end of the summer where all of the Jocelyn Brown was there and all of these stars were there, and we got to meet them. And we actually got an award. They gave us a plaque for participating in the 98.7 IDRC Record Pool Summer Kiss program, where they set up the flatbed trucks in different parts of the city, and we performed. That was a big thing, you know. And when it just fell through and there was nothing going to happen after that, it just, and then, you know, then the Loft kind of like closed around that same time. So now we didn't even have that place to go to anymore. And then, of course, the garage closed within the next year after that. And it was just like, there was just this space where there was nothing going on. Small little part. You had the Sound Factory going on, but that didn't have a long run. You know, all the Bonds ended up closing, which is another big club that ended up closing. And then you had, what was that? What was that club out in Jersey that we all was going to for a little minute there? I forgot the name of it.
Zanzibar.
Yes, Zanzibar. We went to Zanzibar's for a minute. I think the first time that I actually went there, because I really liked Zanzibar, that dance floor was amazing. I seen what's the name play there, and I never really went to Better Days, so I didn't get to see him play. But the first time I went to Zanzibar, I saw
T. Scott.
Yes, I saw T. Scott. They had him as a special guest at Zanzibar's, and that was amazing. That was my first and only time hearing him play, and forget about it. He was amazing. But then Zanzibar didn't have a long run, and it ended up closing. And, you know, you had all these other clubs, and everything just started closing. And you had Red Zone for a little while, and everybody was going there. But there was nothing that was consistent enough to keep the people and the scene going until the shelter opened. And when Timmy opened up the shelter down on Hubert Street, that was the spot. But it started to infuse the new dance scene. The new dance scene of people who the younger core set of people who kind of, I guess you could say, took the baton. And I was with it for the first 2 shelters. Like when it closed for you and then it reopened at the same spot. You know, say, okay, wow, this is still gonna be all right. But it didn't stay open for another year or so. And then when the shelter finally closed, and then it just started moving to different spots, you know, the writing was pretty much on the wall. So as far as the dance scene, it was done. And then I ended up doing some other stuff. I started a rock band. I got into rock band. I started a thrash metal band for about 4 or 5 years. I just stopped going out. I wasn't going out because I just had lost the fire, because I couldn't find a spot that I knew that I could go to every Saturday night, that was going to be open every Saturday night for a while. And it just wasn't going to happen. And look at what we have now. You don't have that anymore. It's pretty much a done deal. So yeah, that's basically why I just gave up on being, you know, I still could do it now. I mean, I know how to teach choreography. I know how to get people together. Matter of fact, I went to they had some kind of, I think Loose Louie invited me to come. And they had a forum, and all of the, you know, some guys was on the forum talking about the dance style, and there was a lot of young people there, and they were into dance. And I basically said, look, all of this stuff that coming together and learning how to dance, house dance, and all of that, that's fine and dandy. But what are you going to do with it? If you're not going to try to put something together where you could get on stage and perform, then what's the sense? If you're just going to learn how to dance just to keep going to the club and then doing what you learned in the studio, what is that benefit in terms of just everybody learning how to dance and do the same thing? Because that's what it is now. That's what made the Loft special, that whole era, even the garage for that matter. Everybody had their own style. Was there a Loft style dance? Because that's been something that has been debated for years now. If you put the same people in a club for 7 to 10 years in a row, if I dance the way I dance, he dances the way you dance, eventually we're going to all start looking alike because we're going to all learn from each other. And even though I may have my own style, which I still had, there were certain signature moves that emanated from that. And any old body could do a signature move to just fit in. Well, that's what you see happening now. Everybody's going to studios and they're learning. To me, what I see is everybody learning how to do a step or a style, and they're all doing the same thing. I challenged people. I said, somebody got to come out of this and create a group and let that group perform. Put it out there so that you don't just teach. Teaching is fine. Don't get me wrong. I think teaching is a great thing. But what's going to come out of that? The challenge for us was when we were the City Steppers was, and somebody challenged us, is like, okay, guys, you guys have a great thing going on here. You've built up this great name for yourself. You're performing. We were performing with. We opened up for the Jackson 5. We got to meet them. We were on Wonderama. We danced on the Joe Franklin show. We were on TV. We traveled. We performed with Jimmy Castor Bunch. Okay, Mike, what are you guys going to do to take it to the next level? And they were saying, you guys got to sing. That would be the way you take this to the next level and not just be a dance group. And so we started taking singing lessons. We took voice lessons. And that was what we were trying to do to take it to the next level. And that was what I was basically trying to tell people is, okay, what are you guys going to do? Are you going to take it to the next level? And somebody got to come out of this being a dance group. I've seen a couple of dance groups come out of this whole scene where there was a couple of groups that I saw, but I don't see, unless there's something that I don't know, all I see is contests. Fine and dandy, but there should be some type of performance coming out of that. Like Alvin Ailey, you bring a group of people together and you create some choreography and you perform and you put on shows. That was what I tried to, inspire from my experience in the past. But as for me, I don't know. I could do it, but I'm at that age now. So let the younger people do it now. If they invite me to talk about it, that's basically what it is. I'm doing my own thing right now, so I really don't have time for that. But that's it. Sorry I took so long with that.
No, that was fantastic. Another question from Willie Pinedo. Dancing all your life and recruiting the top dancers in the city, what are your regrets?
Well, I just basically said one of the regrets. I had opportunities to take it worldwide. I think that when I had the opportunity to go to England and I didn't jump on that, that was really, I even wrote a song about that called Complacency, where I just didn't seize the moment and challenge myself to what, in other words, what I didn't know what it would be like to go to England and then just some people just take me to a club and say, okay, Mike, start dancing. Now, basically, I just thought that was what they wanted me to do. But who knows what would have happened? I had stage experience, and I just regret that I didn't do things. I didn't do that because I was so caught up with the loft and not missing out on that whole thing. And so yeah, I regretted that. I really had a regret about that. There were other missed opportunities. We were with the City Steppers. We performed at the New York State beauty pageant at Studio 54. We signed a contract and everything. We had a manager at that time. One of the guys' his mother was our manager. We opened up the New York State beauty pageant in Studio 54. We walked the reigning queen from the year before out on stage, and we had a routine set around her. There were judges there. Stormfield and all of these stars were the judges for the pageant. And the man who was producing, who I don't even know who was the producer of the whole show, promised that we would go to England with the reigning, whoever won the contest would leave from New York State and go to the Miss World's contest. And then they were like, you guys, because we had auditioned for the show, and the producer loved us enough to sign a contract with us. So he's like, hey guys, listen, you guys are going to England with us. And Flame was late that the night of the show. And God, I love Flame a lot, but Flame just didn't have the business side of entertainment locked in. And he was all over the place, doing whatever he was doing. He showed up late to the show, and we opened up the show, and the producer sitting right there in the front row and seeing only 3 of us come out instead of the 4 of us. And it just messed up the whole, because the routine was set for 4 people, and then the queen is in the middle. So at the last minute, we had to try to change everything, and he didn't see the 4th person. Man, he was like, give them guys their money and tell them to go on about their business. And that's exactly what he did. We got paid, but we didn't go to England. We blew it. Missed opportunity. And the group broke up pretty much because of that. After we missed that opportunity, one guy was like, yo, Mike, I'm out. Another guy was like, if you don't get rid of Flame, I quit. And it was like, how can I hold it? I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, we got to get rid of Flame. Who's going to tell Flame he's not in the group anymore? It's just, and actually, it should have been the manager's job to say, look, you're not in the group anymore. And she didn't do it. So we missed a great opportunity to travel with a producer who already had stuff lined up, who knows what would have happened out of that experience. So, I don't think I need to say anything more. There's nothing else for me to say. These are the stories that I'm telling you that reminded me of the group. What was that movie about the five guys that were in the singing group?
Five Tops?
The who?
Five Tops?
Was it the Five Tops? I don't think that was the name of the movie. It was about these five guys that was in a group. They were a singing group, kind of like the Temptations. And basically the story was about the failures of them not making it because of all of the drama that they had going on in the group. Well, that was our story too. That was our story. And, I tried the second time with the Force 5. And, after that, it was like, all right, man, I'm just going to dance and just have a good time and forget about it. So that was it.
One more question from Willie. He said, before Willie and you danced for an artist, Billy, what happened there? Why did you guys fall apart?
Okay, great question. I used to know, matter of fact, she used to do my hair. A sister by the name of Terry Billy. She was a hairdresser, but she also sang. And this must have been around 87. She came out with a song called Don't Lock Me Out. She had signed a record deal. And she came to me and she was in love with my dancing also. And she was like, look, I want you to dance with me when I perform. So I said, okay, can I bring Willie along? So I said, oh, sure, fine, you and Willie will dance with me. So we got together, put a little routine together, and we performed with her at the Love Light, which at that time was on 35th Street, 9th and 10th Avenue. There was a club called, it was a nice club too. It's called the Love Light. That was on the same block as the Octagon. And so the first performance, great thing. And then we got to perform with her at, it was called 1018. It was a skating rink down near below 14th Street. And on that bill, Colonel Abrams was on that bill. So it was Colonel Abrams, somebody else, and she was the opening act. And during that time, I started to notice something with the guy who was her manager. He was an Italian guy. And we were backstage preparing for the performance. And Colonel Abrams was sitting at a table and he sitting in front of a mirror, and he had lines of cocaine. Next thing I know, I went a little further down in the dressing room. Next thing I walked in on Terry with the manager. And he had cocaine. I was like, oh man, this is not gonna happen. Come on, man. So I went and talked to her about it. I said, Terry, he's your manager. I ain't got nothing. I can't tell you who to be your manager, but if he's feeding you cocaine, that's gonna fuck everything up. Oh no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I got it. I'm under control. I said, well, why are you doing this shit before you go on stage? Why do you have to do that? Why? Because Colonel Abrams is doing it. Because he's doing it. You gonna do it too? She didn't listen. And he kept feeding her and feeding her and feeding her. And before you know it, he turned her out. And he just started using her. And she had the song that she had was getting played on BLS at that time. They were playing that song on the radio. She was getting radio play. Yo, I'm like, you getting ready to blow up. Leave that stuff alone, please. Please do me a favor and leave it alone. And she didn't listen. And he sucked her up with that stuff. And she became totally turned out to the point where she actually had to leave to escape him. And that was the end of that.
Wow.
That was the end of that, bro. Never seen. She left New York and I heard she moved to Maryland. She met a guy and she ended up marrying him and she never came back to New York. I guess she got it together and got her act cleaned up. But you know, that's part of the business that you have to deal with, you know, is to keep yourself focused on the business side and not get caught up in the other side, which is the party side, the everything where, oh, it's a big hoopla, ha, blah, 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 here, take some of this. Sniff some of this. Come on, we're going to sniff some of this, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, now you're sniffing before you're getting ready to go on stage. And it just messed everything up. And look what happened to Colonel Abrams. Look what happened to him. He's the perfect example. And it's just not him. It was a whole lot of people that messed up their career because of that. Case closed.
So well said. I have some questions from Loose Lewis Key. Some people called you Fast Mike. How did you get that name?
They started calling me Fast Mike when I started going to the Loft. Basically, they started calling me because I was using a lot of fancy footwork. I like to dance on my toes. So I just started doing a whole lot of quick steps and movements with my feet and my body. And I would try to do as much as I could in between the beats and still be on beat at the same time. And people used to say, yo, this guy's going 90 miles an hour. And that's just how I got the name. They just started calling me Fast Mike, so it just stuck. That was my dance style pretty much, and Willie had his own dance style, but we were able to complement each other because of the intensity and the speed in which we danced. And the same thing with Rick. Doc was, for a big guy, he had a lot of quickness, I would say. So you got quickness and you got agility. You could have said quick Mike, you could have said agility Mike, but they just used the word fast. That was just my style of dancing. And it was the Loft people that started calling me that. I didn't make that name up for myself. Juice had his name. If you would have asked Juice, why did they call him Juice? I don't know why. I don't think Juice made up that name to call himself that. Maybe he did. I don't know. But I didn't make up Fast Mike as my name. I just stuck. Hey, what's up, Fast Mike? Blah, 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 blah. And I just said, all right, fine, whatever.
Another question from Loose. What was it like before disco when DJs like Flowers, Maboya, Plummer, Pete DJ Jones, and King Charles were hot in the streets?
The dance scene, and I'm going to say straight from the Himalaya, was very competitive. It was very in-your-face kind of dancing. If you got on the dance floor and you didn't know what you're doing, somebody would jump in your face and start They used to say you would get burned. So, and it started from when I went to Himalaya, that's basically what it was. Somebody would get out and somebody would get in their face and they would just be going at it, blah, 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 blah. That's basically what it was. And it stayed that way until we started going to the gay clubs. Even when I was with Flowers and them, it was still competitive. They had dance offs, they had dance contests, and then they had group dance offs. Maboya dances versus Flowers dances. When you put VS in between two people, then it's competitive. And that's just how it was. And to say that it was never like that, I disagree with that. It was very much like that. We've gotten chased home from dance contests before because we won and other group lost. We got jumped. It was dangerous. Rubber Band was killed on the dance floor. Somebody stabbed him on the dance floor. And this was part of Flowers. In the middle of all of that, you had that going on. Wow, Flowers and all of them, it was still like that. It slowly got out of that, it slowly got out of that and it became more of just, everybody just coming together and just dancing. But still, when you had that whole up rock style of dancing, it was me against you. If you got on the dance floor, I got burned on the dance floor many times in Barracks. So that's how it was. Was it like that in the Loft? Not really. It was people getting in each other's faces, but there was still some competitiveness going on in the Loft. There was still some of that going on. And sometimes it would carry over into when we went to the park, Washington Square Park. It was always a thing about the garage dancers versus the Loft dancers. Who was the better dancers? There was a debate about that. So, yeah, it was kind of competitive. From Flowers, right? Even before that.
Another question from Luce. As a dancer, why didn't the group get into the breakdancing trend back then?
The breakdancing trend was, what's his name? The guy who ended up calling his name Crazy Legs started his own group.
Rocksteady?
The Rocksteady crew. That was the Bronx, basically. And then it was it was here in Brooklyn also. But I don't know, we just didn't think it was something that we wanted to do. I didn't want to spin on my head. I didn't want to spin on, I just didn't want to do that. I saw it as dangerous, so, and it was hip hop. It's very much part of the hip hop scene. And we weren't part of the hip hop scene. We were very much into the dance music, soul music, club music, which eventually became termed house music. That hip hop, the breakdance scene was very much hip hop, the locking and all of that. That was a hip hop thing. So, and we weren't really into that. So we just didn't think, okay, well, let them keep doing that. We have our thing and they have their thing. And we were doing okay with what we were doing. So it was like, well, let's just keep doing what we're doing, which was basically the drop style that we learned from going to the Himalaya. The breakdance scene kind of came a little later on with when what's his name, Rapper's Delight and all of those guys start coming on the scene. That's when the breakdance scene came in, and we were past that already. So it wasn't something that we were going to go back to. So no, Just didn't want to do that.
Also, let's clarify for people, the Himalaya was on Coney Island, and it was a ride, not a club, but the sound system and the DJ was fire. And if you knew about it, people would just go there and hang out for hours.
Very much so. It was the place to go. As a teen, a young teen, if you couldn't get in the club, if you were too young to get in a club at 14, 15 years old, then you go to Coney Island. You knew you was going to hear a DJ. You know you was going to hear music. You know you was going to hear James Brown, because back then James Brown was the man back then. And a lot of the dancers would, when they would put James Brown on, then everybody would start dancing. And so that was, for me, that was the place I could go and not have to worry about getting in the house before 12 o'clock. Because I could go to Coney Island and hang out at 8 o'clock, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and stay out there as long as I wanted to and still get back in the house before my parents was like, you out too late. Because my father used to have a curfew on me at that time. So yeah, that was the place to go. A lot of people, everybody went there. It just eventually died out because just the clubs opened up. So once clubs opened up, then it was really, you didn't have to go there anymore. You just didn't have to go there anymore.
I used to go there too, by the way, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly. The Himalaya was straight fire. It was the sound. I think it was a Richard Long sound system.
It may have been Richard Long. Yeah. It probably was, because
and the music was fire.
You could hear that song, that system coming from the train.
Yes, as soon as you got off the train, you heard it, and it was like the Pied Piper. You just go to the Himalaya.
You just followed the music right to the Himalaya, and then when you got there was always a big crowd of people there, and it just stayed the spot and the place to go until the gang scene showed up.
Ooh, break that down. Explain that for people.
So what happened was, in the 70s, late 70s, there were a lot of gangs that were created from being graffiti artists. And if you were a graffiti artist and you started a graffiti group, you kind of would be labeled as a gang, because it was very competitive as well. Who's spray painting on the wall, blah, 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 blah. And I was in a group called the Chairman's J. We used to give parties back in the early 70s. And that was also the place to go for graffiti artists and gang members. So if you went to Coney Island as a graffiti group, you got caught up in gang groups also. So there used to be a gang called Homicide Incorporated that used to, pretty much their base was Coney Island. And if you went to Coney Island and you had your Lee jacket on with your graffiti colors on, you were considered a gang. And you could get caught up in the mix. And gang fights and stuff like that all was part of that. And that was also part of the hip hop scene also. You know, graffiti, breakdancing, and hip hop were all part of that same scene. And violence was very much a part of that. Yes.
Another question from Lewis. He says, ask Mike, tell us about the after party after the club and going to Washington Square Park.
Oh man, listen. If you took a 172, and I hope that whoever's watching this, they will know what I'm talking about. That stayed in your system for almost 2 days. So you go from the Loft at 3. You go to the Greasy Spoon and stay till 4 or 5. You go to Washington Square Park and you still got it in your system. And you stay out there till dark. And then you go home and you still got that stuff in your system. And we would do it pretty much every Sunday. The garage scene would come to the Washington Square Park too. We used to dance and put the hat out. And tourists would come by and throw money in the hat. And so I went to Dave one day and I said, listen, Dave, because, you know, Dave and I were pretty cool. We had a great relationship. I used to go to Dave and say, look, Dave, play a song. I would ask him to play a certain song and he would say, all right. He would just look at me, all right, I got you. And then I would go downstairs and boom, he would play the song. So one day I went to Dave after the party and I said, look, bro, I said, we go to Washington Square Park every Sunday and we dance, but we don't have no loft music. I said, we need some loft music. And I used to have one of those big JVC speakers with the big round speaker and the little short tweet and the little tweeter. I used to bring it to the loft with me and keep it in the coat check. So then after the loft, I would take it with me and we would go to Washington Square Park. But we didn't have loft music. So I said to Dave, Dave, come on, man, hook me up. So he says, no, Mike. He says, I'll tell you what. You stay after the loft closed one day and you make the tape. I said, me? He said, yeah, you can do it. I'm going to be busy, man. I'm going to be tired from playing all night. He says, usually, all you got to do, you ain't going to be mixing or nothing like that. Just choose the songs that you want, put it on, then hit record. I said, oh, wow, I cannot believe this man is going to let me come in and get on his system. I went and bought I should have got 90s. I got greedy and bought I got 120s. I got greedy. So I got the 120s and I said, I'm going to make sure I get it all. I just didn't know what to do. When I got on the first turntable, that first song I put on, I got nervous. And I said, oh, shoot, I don't know what to do. And Dave looked at me and he saw it. He was like, all right, never mind, Mike. I'll do it. I see you looking like you kind of nervous. I said, I am. He said, just tell me what you want. I stood there and told him everything that I wanted on those CDs, on those cassettes, actually. And he hooked it up. He spent 2 hours making up 2 120 cassette tapes for me. And let me tell you something, bro. Them cassette tapes got burned out. I think for maybe a year straight, them bad boys came with us to the park. And we had our own music. So basically, it was an extension. I brought it with me to the Greasy Spoon, popped them bad boys in. We eating breakfast and we still got loft music. We're dancing. We all go to the Washington Square Park. We hanging out, one big family, put the music on. We got our loft music, danced until darkness. And then we did this every weekend. Yeah, bro. That's the story right there for the record books right there.
Wow. Another question from Luce.
Man, Lucy killing me, bro. What's up?
Yeah. Luce says, at the Loft, which dancers inspired you at that time, both male and female dancers?
Okay, when you talk about females, you got to talk about Coco. When you talk about females, you got to talk about Cat I.L. You got to talk about Stoney. You got to talk about Martha. You got to talk about Jackie. You got to talk about Carol. There was a bunch of female dancers that could tear it. They used to tear it up. That's what made it such a great thing also, because there weren't just a lot of great male dancers. There was a lot of great female dancers. And when Cat and Willie used to dance, forget about it. Coco was another bad dancer. And this used to bring a lot of other women downstairs just to be part of that, to, to, to become great dancers themselves, you know. And then for me, Rick, Juice, James, Willie, the twins, Billy, all of these, Papo, Chris, Karate Chris, rest in peace. These were all cats that were part of that scene. Luce also had his own style, you know. Archie joined in. But for me, when I saw Ricky and Papo dance at the Buttermilk, I was blown away. And I was like, oh, wow, look at this. Look at this. Look at this different style that they're doing. So I was like so encouraged. I was like, I have to be part of this. So that very next weekend, I went and I watched and learned, even though as I jumped out on the floor that first time and Juice kind of like gave me some initiation. He was like, okay, let me see what you got. And I was like, whoa, I couldn't believe that. And him and the guy kind of went mano and mano. But I had big respect for him. He was a great dancer. So after that, me and him was cool, bam. And every Saturday night, him and I would tear it up. Same thing with Willie, another amazing guy. Ricky is another guy. Come on, man. These are the guys that I looked up to, that I had to step my game up. I guess maybe that's why they started calling me Fast Mike, because I had to keep up with them. Them guys was going 90 miles an hour with their own style. Ricky he was into the arts, but he still was going 90 miles an hour. He was very dangerous to dance with. You might get your head kicked off. But he was a bad mojo. These are the guys that I wanted to be part of. And then there was other, you had everybody else. Look, everybody had their own style. Of course, you had those that were the creams, but there were other people who was creams too. And then you had women that were just as bad as a lot of garage people used to come to the Loft a lot just to see what was going on, to fiend off of what was going on, because downstairs was the place to be if you went to the Loft. It was a party in itself, not just a place. It was a party. It was a separate party. Like I said, if you didn't have that, what would the Loft have been without downstairs? I can't imagine it being what it would. To me, it would have been just a regular party. But downstairs was so amazing with great dancers. And every weekend, there was always somebody else who would join in. And, and the thing about it, everybody just appreciated, whoever the style, people just appreciated it. And, sometimes somebody would come and, like one day Rerun came and he was a star and all of this and blah, 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 blah. He did his thing, but I think he got intimidated. I actually think he was intimidated, because you ask anybody if the Loft was intimidating, and they will tell you, yes, the Loft was intimidating, especially downstairs. Why? Because you had the lights on. You didn't have darkness where you could kind of dark dance in the shadows and nobody would see you. It was bright lights downstairs. So whoever was dancing downstairs, they saw you dancing. And if you got in the middle of the floor area across from the juice bar where it was really bright, then you were like on stage. So, and everybody was, had their A game. I'm bringing my A game tonight. Come on, man. Come on, bro. You're talking about the best of the best. And that's what made the Loft different from the garage, because the garage was so big, it was hard to, unless you went over where the juice bar area was, or there was a little like lobby area before you got into the Loft, where you could really get away from the main crowd. Because if you got the main crowd, it's kind of hard to really do what you want to do. But because of the way downstairs was set up, it's very casual, with couches on the floor and everything like that. It was amazing, bro. So yeah, those are the guys that did it for me, and the girls too. Man, you didn't just dance with the guys or dance while you could find a girl who could get in and would put it in. They knew what they was doing. Yes, sir.
Another question from Luce. What songs take you to that next level?
Don't Stop, Keep On by Mancuso. That was a floor clearer. Of course, The Force, Keep On Dancing. That was a floor clearer. The thing about Dave is there were songs that he played that was great for the floor and everybody could just join in. But then there were songs that he would play that were dancers' songs. And dancers' songs is when everybody else would be like, I don't know if I can get with that. So they would just push, chill back. And then the real dancers was like, what I can get with that, if Dave played Prince's Irresistible Bitch, that was a bad dance song, but everybody couldn't dance to that. So you would get the cream of the crop would get on the floor because they could, or they would, and they wanted to. And so those were some of the songs for me. Like sometimes when he played Keep On Dancing, I almost would have to pee on myself. Like, let me go to the bathroom and go pee, because if I don't do it now, I might pee on myself while I'm on the dance floor. Because that's how bad the song was to me. Mancuso, we used that song when we were dancing on stage. When we danced with Force 5, that's the song we used to dance on. So those are just a few of the songs for me. Irresistible Bitch, oh, come on. That Prince song was a killer. Prepare to Energize, another great song. Then you have Martin Circus, of course, was a classic song that you could just spaz out on, but Dave had plenty of spaz out songs that he played that you could just spaz out and lose your mind to. But those are just a few. Next.
His next question is, if you could return to the past and give advice to 16-year-old Michael Dungy, what would you tell him?
Don't be afraid don't be afraid to go for all of what you could have done. Like, I've always been like shy. And I know people will say, damn, I don't believe that. But for me, it was always I always used to like be kind of shy in a way, like second guessing myself. That's what I guess you could say. I second guessed myself a lot when it came to performing or dancing, and even though a lot of people would say, well, I don't believe that because, I would get out on the floor in front of everybody and just tear it up. But it still was in the back of my mind sometimes. And when it was times that I could have done that and taken it to the next level, I didn't do it. So if I was to give myself some kind of advice back then, now to say, okay, 16-year-old Michael Dungy, let me tell you what you need to do. Let me give you some advice. Don't be afraid, bro, to leave. Go. If somebody offers you the opportunity to get on stage or whatever, by yourself, maybe, then go ahead and do it. I always felt like I had to. Let me bring the fellas along with me. Or what about the group? Blah, 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 blah. You know, I had opportunities that was presented to me without a group. Like the Alvin Ailey thing. It was like, all I had to do was just say, okay, I'm with it. And that would have been it. But I didn't go for it. I was nervous, scared. I don't know, whatever. But that's what it was. That's what happened. That's the advice I would give myself.
Luz also asked me to ask you, how do you like the new house scene?
Like I said, the new house scene. Here's the good thing about the news. Let me say the good thing about the new house scene. I'm a fan of the new music. I like the new music. Matter of fact, some of the old music I can't even dance to no more, because you grow from the old to the new. And for me, the new music gives me a reason to experiment still and push myself, and because the tempos are a little bit faster now. You know, house music has a constant beat now. And when you mix it right and you still have that constant beat, you can still blah, 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 and you can move and groove and blah, 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 blah. But there's a bad thing about that. And the bad thing about that is house music has kind of taken on techno a little bit with that. And there are no transition points where you could. Number one, there's very little singing in the new house music in terms of telling a story. There is no more storytelling in house music. It's just straight up get it in. And when you have that, it kind of creates this and there's no, it's just this. And there's no emotion because nobody's really singing, nobody's really telling a story. I used to go to the loft sometimes and I would go upstairs and my relationship was not going good at home, and I would go upstairs and hear a certain song that touched me in a way that I got healing from, and I could just go like this and go, oh man, I just feel so much better now. You don't get that now with the new house music. And the dancers seem to me to be, it's follow the leader kind of thing where everybody is just trying to do the same steps. And if you're doing the same steps, then you're all right. If you're not doing the same steps, then maybe you're not all right. Is that what it's like? I don't know. I get that feeling sometimes from just standing back and watching. You know, it wasn't like that back then. When in our era, if you did ballet, you did ballet. That was what you did. And you did it to what you heard. And you told the story. Now there's this structure in it now. There's this structure. I don't know if that's a good word. That's a good word, but that may not be such a good word. You understand what I'm saying? Individuality is not like how it used to be. And I guess people will say, well, it's not like how it used to be. And I get that. But within the new context of house music, can there still be individuality? Can I do something different than what you're doing and it'll be all right with you. Yeah, yeah, that's my take on that, sir.
I love that. Let's talk about the Loft. Uh, the Loft was more than a party. It was a community. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's you only going to get community when you have community every weekend. You're talking about pretty much the same people who were loft heads that showed up every freaking Saturday for 5, 6, 7, 8, and some people for 10 years straight. That's community right there. That's family. We hung out outside of the loft. We didn't just leave the club and everybody just go home and I'll see you next weekend. No, we took that bad boy to the restaurant. The restaurant, we went to the restaurant and they were so happy to see us coming. Oh my God. They knew that we were coming every Sunday after the law. The whole, pretty much, you talking about 40, 50 people. That's community. And after that, it's like, okay, where we going? We're going to Washington Square Park. And we all hang out and drink and dance and drink beer and whatever. That's community. That's family. You can't get that unless you have a club that's every weekend, a year later, every weekend, 2 years later, 5 years later. There's no way I could have gotten to know Dave on the level that I knew him if it wasn't for the fact that his club ran for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years in a row. So Dave was like family to me. He invited me in. What DJ does that? It says, okay, go ahead, make your own CD, your own cassette tape. That's because he was part of the community. He was the Pied Piper of the community. And he created that community. And it was kind of like that at the garage also, but it was on a larger scale. But this is what created the community, the house community. But once you don't have a club where it's every weekend, and you're not going to get that anymore. I doubt very seriously if any club in New York will open up and stay open for 5 to 10 years straight. I don't ever see that happening ever again. And if you don't have that, then you don't really have community like how that used to be, like how the Loft was. It wasn't just dancing alone. It was coming and vibing with the people that you felt comfortable with. When I was in the hospital, when I had pneumonia, I had walking pneumonia, and I stayed in Kings County Hospital for a month, and I couldn't go to the Loft. The only time I could go to the Loft that I missed it. They came to see me. A lot of the guys came one Saturday night. They had the music. I was in the bed, and all of a sudden I hear all of this music, and I'm like, oh shit, what is this Loft music? It was the Loft family that came to visit me while I was in the hospital. And they stayed with me for an hour and played music. And I actually went out in the lobby and I started dancing with my IV hooked up to my arm. Do you know how that made me feel? You know, that brought tears to my eyes. I was like, wow, man, these guys really care about me enough to make sure. And I knew where they was going after that. I knew they was all going to go to the Loft, and it hurt me to know that they were going to leave and I couldn't go with them. But the fact that they did that, that's what you call community. That's what you call family. And it was like 20 of them. Come on, bro. When I finally got back to the loft after being sick, I ran and oh man, I hugged all of them. Because they loved me. That was love, bro. That's what you call love. You don't just do that unless you really care for somebody. You can't beat that, bro. Next question. Dang, you're giving me chills, man.
David Mancuso's Loft was known for the sound. Describe the sound quality and how it contributed to the experience.
Man, that sound system was so powerful. The bass, treble, you could hear it crystal clear. And even downstairs, the speakers that he had downstairs, you didn't miss a beat. It was almost like being upstairs. And when you went upstairs, you were in heaven, bro. That was just, those Richard Long speakers were just incredible. And you got to remember, all of the DJs pretty much, when the garage closed, you go upstairs, who you think you're going to see standing behind David's booth? Larry Levan. They all showed up. All the DJs would come to the loft and just hang out and spend the last couple of hours listening to those speakers, listening to the songs that David played, and then eventually playing them themselves. Like, you don't think Larry didn't play some of the songs that Dave played? Of course he did. Yes, those Richard Long speakers was amazing and just incredible, man. You know, like the music. When the loft closed, it was sad times, bro. It was sad. We all tried to keep it going when he moved to 3rd Street, but it was just, oh man. That's why so many people just dropped out and stopped going. They couldn't accept anything less than that music in that place at that time. Next.
David had a very particular stock way of selecting and sequencing music at the parties. How would you describe his DJ style and the type of music that he played?
Very expressive, very challenging. Dave challenged you with his play style. You just didn't know what he was going to play next. You could be dancing to Get Up and Do It Again. The next thing you know, you're dancing to Thelonious Monk. And then you're dancing to Martin Circus. The next thing you know, you're dancing to Jimi Hendrix. And then you're dancing to Janis Joplin or Joni Mitchell. And then you're dancing to James Brown. You just didn't know what to expect. And he would just catch us off guard so much. And it was like, oh my God. And the thing about it is nobody complained. Nobody said, oh, why is he playing that song? Or why is he playing that song? Nobody ever said that, not once. You went with it and you learned how to be expressive with your dance style off of whatever he played. And it made everybody a better dancer because now you had to change. Okay, what am I going to do to Jimi Hendrix? And boy, after I'd have been dancing to James Brown. What am I going to do if he puts on a Beatles song? What if we all live in the yellow submarine. How you gonna dance to that? You gonna figure it out because he's gonna play. And this is what made him different from everybody else is because he played what you never thought he was gonna play. And when he did it, you danced anyway. And when he finished the song, bravo, bravo, bravo. And then there would be a little pause maybe, and you would go, okay, what's it? And there was this little energy, and then the next song would come on, and then he takes you in a whole different, Macho City would come on, and now everybody's all over the floor, Macho City, and everybody's just all over the floor, like literally on the floor, like crawling and rolling and all of that. You don't get that today. You're not going to get people rolling, not like how we used to do, because the music is the variance in his music was so different that you had to learn to be a dancer. Yes, you had to learn to be a dancer. And that's what David did for all of us. Next.
That's incredible. You talked about Rerun. Were there any other celebrities that came to the Loft on a regular basis or even one-offs?
Yeah, I mean, I would see. I know Rerun was there because they made a big stink. And of course, you saw the way he was dressed. I know there were other people because I heard rumblings. Oh, so and so is here. Well, I can't even remember who it was that was there. But yes, there were celebrities that came to the Loft because they heard so much about the Loft. They wanted to experience it. But for me, man, once I got that tab in me, I didn't know who was there. It didn't matter to me. Once I got my tab in me, you wasn't special. You was just another part of the people that was in the club. And I ain't had time to talk to you either. Because when I'm on the tab and I'm in the music and I'm feeling it and I'm doing my thing, who wants to talk? Who got time to talk? I ain't got time to talk. So no, I don't. I heard about certain people being there in terms of celebrities, yes, but I just don't. Besides Rerun, and I can't really think of any name in particular other than him off the top of my head. But no, that didn't really. I know there was. Put it that way. Yes.
How did attending the Loft affect your taste in music?
It made me the dancer that I became because of I learned to dance off anything. And it took my dancing to a different level. There was no way, let's put it this way. When I got to BMCC and I was in that modern dance class and we basically took over the class. And I mean, I was wearing what you call them things?
A parachute pants?
Huh?
Oh, spandex?
Yes, I had to put on the spandex and everything. All I did was just take what they taught me, which was their standard modern dance teaching. And then I took what I learned from the Loft and blended the two together. Halfway into the semester, the teacher had me move me from the back to the front of the class. She said, okay, you get in the front. So here I am in the front of a modern dance class with all these people that are modern dancers. And she puts me in the front. Where did I get that from? I got it from the Loft, bro. That was the Loft that taught me how to be expansive and expressive with my dancing. How to hold my hands up in the air. Because if you're a modern dancer, you gotta be able to hold your hands up in the air. that was Dave that injected that blood to me to get to that point, to get to a modern dance class. And next thing you know, the teacher says, okay, Michael, you get in the front of the class. And I stayed in the front of the class for the rest of the semester. And when we danced for Alvin Ailey, listen, God is my witness. We were right in the front. In front of Martha and I were in the very front, and all the other modern dancers was around us, but we were front stage center. And Alvin Ailey was sitting right there in the front. And came backstage after that, and you guys were great, and blah, 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 and hugs, and I'm still looking at this guy and didn't even really understand who he was. And wanted us to go to the school. That was Dave. That was Dave. That was Dave. Yes, sir. Next.
How do you think the Loft parties have influenced today's club culture and club scene?
Very much so. Because they're still talking about it 30 years now. At first I wasn't really thinking about doing the interview. I was like, damn, I don't really want to talk about this. I don't really want to. Do I want to talk about it? Everybody else had their shot. And I was like, you know what? Man, listen. I'm going to be 68 years old next week, bro. Let me just tell the story. Everybody has their vantage point. Some people are standing over here. They tell this story from that vantage point. So let me tell my story from my vantage point. And so I just said, you know what? I'm going to just tell how that inspired me. Here we are 30 years later, 40 years from now. Everybody's damn near in their 60s and 70s and still talk about the Loft. They're still having, even though not many of the Loft people go to the reunion parties. I went to the one before the last one, and 90% of the people weren't from the Loft. But these people were coming from out of town just to experience something that was related to Dave. That's incredible. That he's still able to pack a bunch of people in there. A lot of those people I met people from California. Can you imagine people coming from California, flying in just to go to the Loft reunion party and not even hear Dave playing? Dougie's playing. But just to know that they're a part of that and experiencing that's incredible. That's pretty incredible that here we are 40 years later and it's still as if Dave is still alive today. That's incredible. Next.
What was your reaction when the Loft parties came to an end, and how did that impact the Loft community?
No, man, I was devastated. I didn't. We became a band of gypsies who had no home. And we all kind of like would go to parties together as a Loft family. We went to Bonds one night. All of us. We said, okay, where are we going to go? We said, where are we going to go? We all met up and we all went to Bonds together. And when we got to Bonds, the word was out. Yo, the Loft dancers are here. The Loft crew is here. The Loft. That's incredible in itself. That we still tried to stay together after the Loft had closed and we had nowhere to go. But we still managed to stay together and try to keep this thing going. Let's just keep it going. And we would all meet up and go to, where we going? We going this week we go. Oh, we going out to Jersey this weekend. We all meet up. This went on for a while before it just got to the point where everybody started having their own lives, growing up, and so eventually it died out. But the fact that we tried to keep it going, it just tells you how it affected us that we didn't have that place to go to anymore. I was devastated. Next.
What's the biggest misconception about David Mancuso?
Misconception? Wow. How could I answer that question? Misconception about. Wow, you got me on that one. I don't know how I would answer that. Like, you got to tell me what would be the conception, and then I would say, well, that's a misconception. What is it about him that could be misconceived? That what? I don't know how I could answer that question, because I don't what could be the misconception about Dave? That he wasn't friendly? No, that's not true. He opened his house up with open arms, and this is where he lived. So I can't say that. I would never say that about him. I've heard rumblings that, oh, I need certain person didn't get along with him, whatever. I don't know what that was all about. But for me, Dave was always like this, open arms. He loved everything about what he had created. So if there was a misconception about that, then I disagree. Next.
Perfect. What would you say is the legacy of David Mancuso with the Loft?
The legacy lives on. How long has Dave been gone now? 5 years? Has it been 5 years since he passed away? Or
Yes,
more?
it's more than 5 years. Yeah.
More than 5 years. Think about that. I'm not sure. I was with Dave. We went, Willie, Rick, myself, went to Dave, and we had dinner with him. This was before he passed away. And we were talking about putting together some kind of, it was with t-shirt. We were going to have t-shirts, and we were going to have some kind of, I forgot exactly what it was. We were going to put something together to honor the Loft. I don't know if it was either dance or we were going to start some kind of business or whatever. We sat and had dinner with him in a restaurant. And Dave was like, wow. He was like, yeah, I'm all for this. He was all for it. That was 10 years ago. And I could still see Dave, picture him sitting, having dinner with us, talking about a venture that involved the Loft, and him saying, all right, I'm down with it. Tell me what I could do. Because basically that's what he said. What do you need from me to make it happen? Man, listen, bro, you don't get that. That's being real. That's being real. You know, he didn't have to take his time out to listen to us. Who are we? But he respected what we brought to the table. He knew that we cared enough because of who he was. That's his legacy right there. And as long as we're still alive to talk about it, to keep it on, keep it going. Every time they come across his birthday, they honor him. Every time I'm not sure if it's the date that he passed away that they still honor him and remember him for that also, but sure, I'm sure, I think that's being done for him too. He was more than just a DJ. He was a person who cared. Man, that's more important than being a DJ. You understand what I'm saying? That's more important. And that's why people loved him. They loved him. That's why love saves the day. That little slogan is still going strong today. I wish that the house music scene would be like that. And I'm not saying it that they're not, but if there isn't, if there is something missing from that, then be like that. Yes, be like that. Next.
Would the loft work today?
Of course. If the loft would work today, if people are willing to let a DJ be himself and not have expectations about what they're hearing. Because when you have expectations about what you're hearing and you hear something that you don't particularly care for and you vocalize it, like, oh shoot, why are you playing that? Oh man, come on, bro, come on. I've even found myself doing that a few times. I never did that when I was at the loft. That's the only way the loft could be now that is if people just enjoy the moment for what it is and not get caught up in expectations. Because if you got expectations, then the loft is not going to be, it could never happen again. Because that, you have to take that out of the equation and just say, I'm here to have a good time and I don't care, whatever. You think that can happen today, bro? Do you think that could happen today? That people would not just throw expectations out the window and just say, you know what? I'm gonna play whatever I feel, and I'm here to make sure you have a good time, and I'm providing something for you to enjoy yourself. And you're gonna have expectations. Then guess what? It's not gonna happen. No, it would never happen again.
Do you go out dancing today?
Yes, but I don't go to the clubs. Whenever they have the summer parties, then I will go out to a few here and there. I've slowly found myself put it this way, I've weeded myself out of the club scene it's been I think the last time I went out I went to the reopening of the shelter party when it was over there in was that Greenpoint or wherever it was over there, and it was the smaller venue, and that keeps getting smaller, and I was like, man, the places just keep getting smaller. That was the last time I've been out, and I've just kind of weeded myself out of that. You know, when they have the summer parties, I'll do that because you get a mixture of the older heads that come out too. So it's kind of like getting to see people who you haven't seen in a while. Like I saw Renato Person last summer, who used to do 626 Broadway parties. I don't know if you remember those. He used to give that was after the law. He used to give the 626 Broadway parties that was on fire. I gotta tell you, them 626 Broadway parties was on fire. It had a short run. But I saw him last summer after not seeing him for a while. So, that in itself is a reason for me to kind of like still go out for the summer parties, because a lot of the people just don't go out to the new clubs now. So, no, I'm not, you got to know when it's time to, when you've had your time, you just got to know when it's time. You can't do it forever. I never wanted to be the old guy in the club. You know, I've seen that happen. I've seen that before, where I was in the loft one night and I was dancing and I was tripping and I was carrying on, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden I caught these two old guys that were standing in the corner. And they were dressed up with the baggies and camp. And I was like, oh, shoot. And I didn't want to, put them on the spot. And I just kept dancing. And I turned around. I had to turn around again. And I said, oh, my God. These guys are damn near pushing 70. They're in their 60s. And I felt bad because they saw me now noticing them. And I felt bad because I know they didn't want that attention. Because these guys were old heads. I said, nah, man. Nah, Mike. That's not going to be me, bro. I said, nah, it's not going to be me. Nah, I got to know when it's time. And there's a time for everybody. Everybody say, oh, you can do it forever. Guess what? You can't. You can't. You lying. To say that, you just can't. You got to, we all have our time. And when your time is up, you bow out and let the young kids do what they got to do. Right?
That's facts.
You find something else to do. I go to the gym now. I just use my dancing in my workouts. Everybody's like, yo, where you get all this energy from? Blah, 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 blah. That's the dancing. I just transition the dancing into that. Other people transition their dancing, they're DJing or whatever. That's just what you have to do. Find something else to do. Right? Next.
Last question. What do you want your legacy to be?
That I helped create part of the dance scene era in terms from you got the DJs and then you have the dancers. I was part of that for what, 20, 30 years. So I just want my legacy to be I was part of that scene and I left a mark to be remembered along with everybody else that did it. I don't consider myself to be something more than what I was. I came to the club and I just wanted to dance and have a good time and leave it out. I left it all on the dance floor. When I left the loft, I was always sore, hurting, bones aching, and all of that. And whatever happened after that, it just happened. And I'm thankful to God that I'm still alive to actually talk about it. And that's it. If people, I'm thankful, I'm grateful that people think of me enough to say, talk to me, talk to Mike. He was there. Yeah. And I was there. I was part of that scene of other people who were there. We were all there. And I just wanted to have a good time, bro. That may have been a bad thing because I was so busy having a good time that I didn't focus on some other opportunities that I had. That's my legacy.
One more question. What advice do you have to the next generation?
Like I said, and I still say it today. Don't be so hard on other people who don't dance like you. No, I see that a lot. I see that. No, I don't think that's a good thing. Like everybody's not going to dance the same way. And I see that as a prevalent thing now. Don't be so hard on people. Like, just enjoy the moment, because your greatness today means that you won't be so great tomorrow. So remember that your greatness today, there's always going to be somebody coming behind you that's going to be greater. And you being critical of that while you're great now could be them being critical of you when they're great and you ain't no more. So my advice is just have a good time. And if you feel like there's something within you to take it to the next level, then take it to the next level. Because I think it's would be great to see a dance group or two come out of the New York dance scene and put themselves on stage as how the City Steppers were, how the Maboya dancers were, how the Force 5 was, and all of the other dance groups that there were that I just can't remember their names. There was the Two Sweet Dancers. There was a bunch of dance groups that had this dream of being on stage. Yeah, man, that's what it was about. Being on stage. Because once you get on stage, see, being on stage is different from just dancing on the main floor in a circle. When you get on stage, there's a whole different feeling. So yeah, just enjoy the moment. Don't be so critical and hard on everybody. And then have aspirations to take it to the next level for whatever it is. Because right now, dance is being celebrated in a lot of countries now that they weren't being celebrated before, which is a great thing. I think that's great that guys are in Europe teaching dance and all of that. I want to hear our guys in Europe perform. Because right now, all of the performance stuff you see is on these dance shows. The dance shows that they have, which is basically, that's about all where you see. It doesn't go anything beyond that. That's what I mean. You don't hear of a group that started out in New York and now they're performing and they're going here and they're doing this and they're doing that. I don't hear about it. If you know, tell me something that I'm missing. You don't, right?
Nope.
There you go, sir. So that's my advice. Anybody want to talk to me? Give me a call. Talk to me. I'll talk to you. Whatever.
I guess the final question is,
At the final.
if there's, is there anything that I didn't ask you that would help people better understand the Loft and its significance in the New York City club scene?
The significance that the Loft created is that we were able to, everybody had problems, and we were able to come to this one spot that Dave provided, because it was where he lived. This is where he lived. And we were able to just come get out our anxieties, our troubles, and whatever we had going on in our lives for 12 hours and find healing. Let me say that again. Find healing. Not just dance, or not you dance to heal. Are dancers dancing to heal from their problems now? I don't know. Are you just dancing because you just love to dance? Well, a lot of people that I knew, because from experiencing people's talking after the club was over. Oh, I'm going through this. Oh, I'm going through that. Oh, I'm going through this. Oh, I'm going through that. There were a lot of people that had problems, bro, that Dave was able to create a space for people to come here and go home with some kind of healing that would hold them for 5 days, and then they could come back and get that healing again. How important was that? I know for me, it was very important. There were many times that I went there and I went upstairs and I cried like a baby.
Why? What was going on in your life at that time?
My marriage was a mess. When my marriage fell apart, the Loft was where I went to get healed. And I should have been in church, but I was in the Loft. But I was able to go and just release myself, wreck my body, and just come out of there like, oh, man, I just feel better now. Man. And that in itself is worth $1 million to be able to say that. I just feel better now. That should do it, bro.
That was gold. Mike, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for giving me 2 hours and 45 minutes of your time.
Wow, it's been that long, man. Is this, man, this I didn't realize it was that long.
Real talk, this is one of the best interviews I've ever done. I appreciate you being honest.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, man. No problem.
Have a great weekend. All right, peace.
All right, take care, bro.
Peace.